Ever catch yourself like staring in the mirror? And it's not just about the lines on your face, you know? It's like you're looking at time itself. Like, whoa, where'd the years go? And is it just me? Or does it feel like society's always whispering like, hurry up and stay young? Welcome to the Quantum Soul Channel. Today, we're diving deep into aging, but not as this like enemy, you know? We're looking at it as a powerful transformation. And our guide for this journey is going to be Carl Jung. We're going to be exploring excerpts from this text that really seriously makes you rethink how we view getting older. So get ready. It's a longer one today, but it's packed with some awesome insights from science and philosophy and spirituality. So yeah, you might want to grab a notebook if you're into that kind of thing.
I think what's so interesting about this text is how it goes beyond, just the surface anxieties about aging. Like, it's not just about wrinkles, right? It's about this deeper fear of becoming invisible, like irrelevant in a culture that's obsessed with youth.
And you see that fear everywhere. Like, think about how movies and ads always portray youth as like vibrant and desirable. And then older characters often just kind of fade into the background.
It's like aging is presented as this like personal failing, something to be denied or hidden. But the fear, it goes deeper than just physical changes, right? It forces us to confront these huge questions about identity and purpose, especially if we've spent our whole lives chasing achievements and external validation.
So then if we buy into that fear, what happens when those external markers of success start to fade? The text suggests that's where Carl Jung's perspective comes in. He saw the second half of life not as this downward spiral, but as a potential rebirth. Like, it's a shift, he argued, from chasing outward achievements to this deeper, more fulfilling journey inward.
Exactly. And the text really goes into how Jung believed that the first half of life is often dominated by the ego, that part of ourselves that's fixated on accomplishment status, fitting in. But then as we age, there's this natural pull towards something more profound, this longing for genuine meaning and authenticity that goes beyond, those external measures of success.
Okay, so is it kind of like moving from a doing phase to a being phase? Like, the first half of life is all about building a career, a family, a certain identity out in the world. And then the second half is about figuring out who you are beyond all of that.
That's a great way to put it. Jung called this process individuation. It's this journey of integrating all aspects of ourselves, the good, the bad, the parts that we've hidden or rejected, into a whole, complete person.
And that can be pretty challenging, right? Like, the text talks about facing our shadow self. I mean, all those fears, insecurities, the parts of ourselves that we kind of don't want to acknowledge. That doesn't sound like a walk in the park.
It's definitely not always easy, but according to Jung, confronting our shadow is essential for growth. It's only when we acknowledge and integrate those darker aspects that we can truly become whole and discover who we really are.
So you're saying what we typically label as a midlife crisis
Is often a sign that the ego's journey is coming to an end, and this deeper desire for meaning is starting to emerge. It's not a breakdown, but potentially a breakthrough moment.
And that's where this gets really fascinating. The text presents this crisis as a chance to shed those old identities and roles that no longer fit, to finally confront the parts of ourselves that we've been ignoring.
And shedding or letting go is a recurring theme in the text. It argues that to embrace this transformation, we have to let go of constantly seeking external validation, that constant pressure to acquire more. It's about loosening our grip on material possessions, needing everyone's approval, even letting go of old beliefs that just don't serve us anymore.
That's a pretty radical idea, especially in a culture that's always pushing us to strive, achieve, accumulate more. But there's something so liberating about it, isn't there? Just imagine letting go of all that pressure and finally just being.
It is incredibly liberating. And the text suggests that letting go opens us up to experiencing life more fully, to connecting with our inner child, that source of joy, spontaneity, and creativity that we often lose touch with as we age.
This idea of reconnecting with our inner child really resonates with me. It's like remembering how to play, be curious, see the world with fresh eyes. How do we actually do that after years of well-being adults?
The text suggests engaging in activities that bring us joy, whether that's spending time in nature, listening to music, creating art, even just allowing ourselves to be silly and playful sometimes. It's about giving ourselves permission to step outside of, always needing to be serious and responsible.
So it's about rediscovering that simple joy of just being, rather than always striving to achieve something. That makes a lot of sense.
It does, and by tapping into that childlike energy, we can bring more joy and authenticity into our lives, no matter our age.
Now, if you're finding this deep dive as fascinating as I am, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share this video. Help others discover these powerful insights too. Let's keep going because there's so much more to unpack here. The text also connects this idea as reconnecting with our inner child back to letting go, doesn't it?
It does. It suggests that by reconnecting with our inner child, we're more likely to let go of those rigid beliefs and outdated patterns that are holding us back. We become more open to trying new things, more willing to take risks, and a lot more accepting of ourselves, flaws and all that.
So it's like this incredible cycle then. Letting go allows us to reconnect with our inner child. And that connection makes it easier to let go of even more. I love that.
It's a beautiful cycle of growth and transformation, and the text really emphasizes that this process can continue throughout our lives.
And speaking of continuing throughout our lives, there's a part in the text where it mentions how Jung believed life doesn't end at 40, it actually begins. That's a pretty bold statement. What exactly did he mean by that?
It's a direct challenge to that conventional view of aging as a decline. Jung saw it as a time of incredible potential, a time to truly come into our own.
So it's not about desperately clinging to youth, but about embracing the unique opportunities that each stage of life brings.
Absolutely. It's about recognizing that every age has its own unique gifts and challenges, and that the wisdom we gain through experience is incredibly valuable.
The text also argues that this second half of life is a time to live with more purpose and clarity, free from the pressure to conform to societal expectations. Like we can finally define success on our own terms.
That's right. It's about living authentically, pursuing what truly matters to us, and making a meaningful contribution to the world in a way that aligns with our values.
And that could look totally different for each individual, right? There's no one right way to do it.
Exactly. There's no one-size-fits-all approach to living a fulfilling life after 40. It's about finding what resonates with us, what brings us joy, and what allows us to express our unique gifts.
It's like instead of following someone else's script, we're finally free to write our own.
That's a great analogy. It's about becoming the authors of our own lives rather than just playing a role in someone else's story.
And this idea of letting go of external expectations and embracing our individuality ties back to Jung's concept of individuation, right?
Yes, it does. Individuation is about becoming a whole integrated individual rather than conforming to societal norms or expectations. It's about discovering our unique purpose and living in alignment with our true selves.
And the text suggests that this process or individuation often intensifies in the second half of life. Like we're more likely to question our beliefs, challenge our assumptions, and seek a deeper understanding of who we are and why we're here. It's almost like we're finally ready to shed the layers of conditioning and societal programming that have shaped us up to this point. That can be a really messy, uncomfortable process, though, can't it?
It absolutely can be, but it's also incredibly transformative. It's like we're shedding a skin that no longer fits, allowing a new, more authentic self to emerge.
So it's not about becoming perfect, but about becoming whole.
Exactly. It's about embracing all aspects of ourselves, the light and the shadow, and integrating them into a cohesive whole.
This is such a powerful message. It's giving me a whole new perspective on aging. What else does the text highlight about this transformative journey?
Well, there's a fascinating section on the importance of confronting our fears. It points out that as we get older, our relationship with fear kind of changes. When we're younger, our fears are often about external things like failure or rejection. But as we mature those fears, they become more internal, more about things like loss and regret and the unknown.
So like the things that we're afraid of, they kind of evolve as we experience more of life.
Exactly. And the text emphasizes that confronting these deeper fears is key to unlocking the transformative potential of aging. It's not about becoming fearless, it's about learning to navigate those fears with wisdom and courage.
That's a good point, because the text argues that these fears, they can actually prevent us from really living fully, right? Like they can keep us from taking chances or going after our passions and truly becoming who we're meant to be.
You hit the nail on the head. The text offers some really interesting perspectives on how to actually work with fear. It talks about the importance of mindfulness, like becoming aware of our fears without judgment, and recognizing that fear is often based on the stories we tell ourselves rather than objective reality.
So instead of getting caught up in those fear-based stories, it's about challenging those beliefs and realizing that we're often more capable than we think we are.
Exactly. And the text also highlights the importance of self-compassion, like being kind to ourselves when we're afraid, remembering that, fear is a normal human emotion. and that we don't have to be perfect to be worthy of love and connection.
I love that. It's like the text is giving us permission to be human, to embrace our imperfections, and see fear is just a part of life, not the whole story.
That's a beautiful way to put it. And the text goes on to connect this idea of facing our fears with the process of letting go. It suggests that, confronting our fears often allows us to release our attachments to things that no longer serve us, whether that's outdated beliefs, unhealthy relationships, or identities that are holding us back.
So it sounds like facing our fears can actually create space for something new to come into our lives.
Absolutely. It's about clearing out the old to make room for the new, about shedding what no longer fits to allow for growth and transformation.
This deep dive is blowing my mind. We've covered so much already, from challenging how society views aging to exploring Jung's idea of individuation, the significance of shadow work, and the power of reconnecting with our inner child. What are some key takeaways that our viewers can hold on to from what we've discussed so far?
I think one of the most powerful messages is that aging doesn't have to be a decline. It can be this amazing journey of self-discovery and transformation, a time to embrace our true selves and live with more purpose and meaning.
Absolutely. And the text really drives home the point that this journey isn't about, chasing external markers of success or desperately trying to stay young. It's about cultivating inner peace, wisdom, and a deep connection to ourselves and the world around us.
And it's important to remember that this is a unique journey for each individual. There's no one-size-fits-all approach to aging well. It's about finding what resonates with us, what brings us joy, and what allows us to express our unique gifts.
I love that. So it's about embracing the adventure of becoming, of constantly learning and growing throughout our lives, no matter our age.
Precisely. Now, before we dive into the next section of the text, I want to remind you that if you're enjoying this deep dive, please consider subscribing, liking, and sharing this video. It helps others discover these powerful insights too.
Absolutely. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and share this with your friends. Now, the text also talks about the importance of shadow work, which we touched on earlier. Can you elaborate on what shadow work is and how it relates to aging?
Certainly, shadow work, as the text describes it, is the process of exploring and integrating the hidden or shadow aspects of ourselves. These are the parts of our personality that we tend to reject, deny, or repress, often because they're associated with negative emotions or experiences, like anger, shame, or fear.
So it's like those parts of ourselves that we try to keep hidden, even from ourselves.
Exactly. And according to the text, this shadow self doesn't just disappear by ignoring it. It continues to influence our thoughts, behaviors, and relationships, often in unconscious ways.
So we might try to ignore it, but it still finds ways to manifest in our lives.
That's right. And the text suggests that instead of fearing our shadow, we need to embrace it. We need to bring it into the light of consciousness and accept it as part of who we are.
That sounds like a pretty intense process. How do we actually go about doing shadow work?
The text recommends a few approaches. One is through journaling, where we can explore our thoughts and feelings without judgment. Another is through therapy, where we can work with a trained professional to uncover and process our shadow material. And another is through mindfulness practices like meditation, which can help us become more aware of our thoughts and emotions without getting swept away by them.
So it's about becoming more aware of those hidden parts of ourselves and learning to accept them rather than judging or rejecting them.
Exactly. And the text argues that shadow work is especially important as we age because it helps us to become more whole and integrated individuals. As we confront and integrate our shadow, we reclaim the energy that we were spending on repression and denial. This allows us to live with more authenticity and freedom.
That makes a lot of sense. It's like by accepting all parts of ourselves, we become more fully ourselves.
Precisely. And the text goes on to suggest that shadow work can also help us to develop more compassion for ourselves and others. As we become more aware of our own shadow, we can start to recognize it in others. This can lead to greater understanding and empathy in our relationships.
This is so insightful. It's like shadow work is not just about personal growth, but also about building stronger, more compassionate relationships.
Absolutely. Now, the text also delves into the concept of the inner child, which we talked about earlier, and its connection to the shadow.
I'm curious to hear about that. How does the inner child relate to our shadow self?
Well, the text suggests that our inner child often holds the key to understanding and healing our shadow. Our inner child is that part of us that is still innocent, playful, and full of wonder, but it's also the part of us that may have experienced hurt, rejection, or trauma.
So our shadow can contain those unhealed wounds from childhood.
That's right. And the text argues that by reconnecting with our inner child and listening to its needs, we can begin to heal those wounds and integrate our shadow more fully.
That makes sense. So it's about acknowledging and nurturing that inner child, even as adults.
Exactly. And the text provides some practical suggestions for doing this, such as engaging in creative activities, spending time in nature, and simply allowing ourselves to be playful and spontaneous.
I love those suggestions. It's like giving ourselves permission to tap back into that childlike joy and wonder that we often lose touch with as we get older.
Precisely. And the text emphasizes that by nurturing our inner child, we can bring more balance and wholeness into our lives.
This is so fascinating. It's like we're weaving together all these different threads of Jungian psychology, the shadow self, the inner child, and the process of individuation to create a more complete picture of aging.
That's a great observation. The text does a wonderful job of showing how these concepts are all interconnected and how they can help us to understand and embrace the challenges and opportunities of aging.
Now, the text also talks about the role of spirituality in aging. Can you elaborate on that?
Certainly, the text suggests that as we age, our spiritual needs often become more pronounced. We may start to question the meaning and purpose of life, grapple with our own mortality, and seek a deeper connection to something greater than ourselves.
So it's like we're naturally drawn to explore those bigger questions as we get older.
Exactly. And the text emphasizes that there's no one right way to approach spirituality. It's about finding what resonates with us, whether that's through organized religion, personal medication, nature connection, or any other practice that helps us to connect with a sense of meaning and purpose.
That's a really important point, because spirituality can look so different for each individual.
It absolutely can. And the text encourages us to be open and curious in our spiritual exploration, allowing ourselves to be guided by our own inner wisdom and intuition.
I love that. It's about finding our own unique path to spiritual fulfillment.
Now, before we move on to the next section of the text, I want to take a moment to remind our viewers about the importance of community and connection.
Absolutely. That's something we haven't touched on yet, but it's so crucial, especially as we age.
It is. The text highlights how vital it is to cultivate meaningful relationships with others, whether that's through family, friends, or community involvement. These connections provide us with a sense of belonging, support, and love, which are essential for our well-being at any age, but especially as we navigate the challenges and transitions of later life.
That makes perfect sense. Our relationships are the foundation of our lives, and they can provide us with so much strength and resilience.
Exactly. And the text encourages us to be intentional about nurturing those connections, making time for the people who matter most, and creating opportunities for shared experiences and meaningful conversations.
This is such great advice. I think it's easy to get caught up in the busyness of life and neglect our relationships, but they're truly one of the most precious things we have.
Now, before we delve into the next fascinating section of the text, I want to remind you that if you're finding this deep dive valuable, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share this video. Help us spread these empowering messages, and let's keep exploring together.
Absolutely. Hit that subscribe button and share this with anyone who might benefit from these insights. Now let's dive back into the text. What other wisdom does it offer about the transformative journey of aging?
Well, one of the most intriguing aspects of the text is its exploration of the concept of time and how our perception of time shifts as we get older.
That's interesting. I've definitely noticed that my sense of time has changed as I've gotten older. What does the text have to say about that?
The text suggests that in our younger years, we often experience time as linear and future-oriented. We're focused on achieving goals, planning for the future, and building our lives. But as we age, our perception of time tends to become more cyclical and present-centered.
So instead of constantly looking ahead, we start to appreciate the present moment more.
Exactly, and the text argues that this shift in time perception can be incredibly liberating. It allows us to let go of regrets about the past and anxieties about the future, and to savor the beauty and richness of the present moment.
That makes so much sense. I've definitely found that as I've gotten older, I've become more present and less worried about things that are out of my control.
That's wonderful to hear. And the text emphasizes that cultivating present moment awareness is a key to aging gracefully. It allows us to appreciate the simple joys of life, to connect more deeply with ourselves and others, and to find peace and contentment in the mimic of life's ups and downs. It really makes you think, doesn't it? Like, what if all those things that society tells us to fear about getting older, wrinkles, gray hair, the loss of youth, what if those are actually the stepping stones to a more profound sense of self and purpose?
It's like we've been given this totally wrong map for how to navigate life. We're told to tread getting older, when maybe we should be looking forward to it with a sense of excitement.
Exactly. The text encourages us to shift our perspective, to see aging not as a descent, but as an ascent, like a spiral that leads us upward towards greater wisdom, self-awareness, and spiritual depth.
I love that image of a spiral. It really captures the idea that aging isn't linear, it's cyclical. Like we keep circling back to certain themes and challenges, but each time we do, we're at a higher vantage point with a broader perspective.
That's beautiful. And the text emphasizes that this spiral never really ends. There's always more to learn, more to discover, and more to integrate into our understanding of, ourselves and the world around us.
That's both exciting and a little daunting, right? It's like we're never really finished with this process of becoming.
It's a lifelong journey, and the text suggests that embracing this journey with curiosity and a willingness to keep evolving is key to experiencing the fullness of life.
Now, the text also talks about, finding meaning and purpose in the second half of life. And I know this is something that a lot of people struggle with, especially as they transition out of careers or roles that maybe define their identity for so many years.
Right, it's a really common experience. And the text offers some valuable insights into how to navigate this transition. It suggests that instead of trying to recreate the same level of, external achievement or validation that we might have experienced in our younger years, we can shift our focus towards making meaningful contributions in ways that align with our values and passions.
So instead of looking for that external validation, it's about finding a sense of purpose that comes from within.
Exactly, and that might involve volunteering, mentoring, spending time with loved ones, pursuing creative endeavors, or simply living in a way that reflects, our deepest truths.
So it sounds like it's about finding ways to express our unique gifts and make a positive impact on the world in whatever way feels authentic to us.
Precisely. And the text emphasizes that this sense of purpose doesn't have to be, grand or monumental. It can be found in the smallest acts of kindness, compassion, and generosity.
I love that. It's a reminder that meaning and purpose can be found in everyday life, not just in those extraordinary achievements.
Now, the text also talks about the importance of cultivating a sense of gratitude as we age.
That's a practice I've been trying to incorporate more into my own life. What does the text say about the benefits of gratitude?
Well, it highlights how gratitude can shift our perspective from one of scarcity and lack to one of abundance and appreciation. It helps us to focus on, the blessings in our lives rather than dwelling on what we might be missing.
I've definitely found that to be true. When I'm feeling grateful, it's harder to get caught up in those negative thoughts or anxieties.
Exactly. And the text suggests that cultivating gratitude can actually have this ripple effect on our overall well-being. It can boost our mood, improve our relationships, enhance our resilience, and even strengthen our immune system.
Wow, those are some incredible benefits. It sounds like gratitude is a powerful antidote to a lot of the challenges that come with aging.
It really is, and the text encourages us to make gratitude a daily practice, whether that's through keeping a gratitude journal, expressing appreciation to loved ones, or simply taking a few moments each day to reflect on the things that we're grateful for.
Those are all great suggestions. I'm inspired to make gratitude a more conscious part of my daily routine.
Now, as we approach the end of this deep dive, I want to circle back to one of the most important themes we've discussed, which is this idea of letting go.
That's a concept that I feel like runs throughout the entire text. Like letting go of what no longer serves us, whether that's old beliefs or outdated identities or attachments to material possessions. It seems to be key to really embracing the transformative potential of aging.
You're absolutely right. The text emphasizes that letting go isn't about giving up or resigning ourselves to decline. It's about creating space for new growth, new experiences, and new possibilities.
Like we have to clear out the clutter to make room for those treasures.
Beautiful analogy. And the text reminds us that letting go can be a process. It takes time, patience, and self-compassion.
And that's an important message for our viewers. I think letting go isn't always easy, but it's essential for growth and transformation.
Absolutely. And the text encourages us to view letting go not as a loss, but as a liberation, a way of freeing ourselves from, the burdens of the past and stepping into the lightness and freedom of the present moment.
This deep dive has been such an incredible journey. We've covered so much ground, from challenging societal views on aging to exploring Jung's concept of individuation, the importance of shadow work, the power of reconnecting with our inner child, and the transformative potential of letting go.
It's been a rich and rewarding exploration, and I hope our viewers have gained some valuable insights and inspiration for their own journeys of aging and self-discovery.
Before we wrap up, I want to remind you one last time that if you enjoyed this deep dive, please consider subscribing, liking, and sharing this video. It helps us reach a wider audience and continue creating content that empowers and inspires.
And don't forget to check out the 2 videos on your screen to continue your journey with the Quantum Soul. Until next time, keep diving deep.